Hello, everybody. I think we're live now.
Yes.
Welcome to the space. Thank you for your time, guys. Today we're going to be having a great discussion about the up and coming innovations in the Solana ecosystem, all of the new financial primitives that keep on appearing in the space, which is great. And we have today some of the founders driving that new innovation for the new protocols and the new primitives that are in the space. So hopefully we'll get around to discuss what is the state of affairs in the Solana ecosystem, what's new, what's exciting, and what should new founders know about the ecosystem and how to get started into it. Okay, so my name is Juan David. I'm one of the co-founders of Keyrock. I'll be your host today, and let's try to have some fun. So first of all, I'm gonna try to quickly introduce our audience here. So we're gonna have Chris from Titan, Luke from Loopscale, and Anna from Perena. I think we have one more speaker that might be joining us later from Exponent. So if he does, we'll welcome Thomas at the time. So just a quick intro on yourself and what the protocol does. That would be brilliant. Maybe we can start with Chris.
Yeah, sure thing. So I guess I'm one of the founders of Titan. So Titan is a Solana DEX aggregator. What we do is we find the best price through all the DEXs that exist on the Solana ecosystem and provide that to the user to route to. So not only that, Titan's also a MetaDex aggregator. So we aggregate other aggregators like Jupiter, DFlow, a couple other more that are in the pipeline, and we just route the user to the best price, regardless of what the actual cost is at that stage. So no fees are charged on our side, and that's really our value proposition there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris. Thomas also just joined us now. Maybe we can continue with Thomas. Why not?
Yeah, sure. What's the question about? What do we do?
What do you do? What does Exponent do? Why are you cool? Go for it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Thomas, the co-founder of Exponent. I used to work at Squads before and Camino. I've been working in Solana since 2021. And yeah, Exponent is a yield exchange protocol on Solana. So people can access fixed yields. They can basically swap floating yields for fixed yields on top of protocols like Camino, MarginFi, Perena, Jittery staking, and others. And on the other side, people can also speculate on rates. So if they're bullish on the yield of USD Star, for instance, they can go on Exponent and get leverage exposure to those rates. And we've been live for over 4 months now, and we have 50 mil TVL, doing between 1-2 million in fixed yield volume per day and close to 1,000 active users per day.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Very clear. Maybe Anna, you want to take it over?
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. I'm the founder of Perena. I work with all the amazing projects here on stage today. Perena is a stablecoin infrastructure project. So we build stable swaps. We also build what I call composable currencies, which we create various stable pegged asset characteristics from various types of assets, from trading strategies to real world assets to DeFi assets. And we have, I think we crossed $2 billion in swap volume since launch, and we're now probably averaging 20-ish thousand users a day. I have to check as it changes a lot day to day.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us. How about you, Luke?
Yeah, so I am Luke, one of the co-founders of Loopscale. We are a modular order book-based lending platform on Solana. And so a lot of what we do is focused on just sort of the typical borrow lend type user flows that you're familiar with from some of the more popular borrow lends on Solana and ETH. But a lot of what we're focused on are things that sort of expand the box of assets that can ultimately be used as collateral for lending. So for lenders, a lot of the benefits come to custom risk controls, so setting different collateral options, LTVs, oracles, etc. yourself. And for borrowers, you get access to a lot more collateral options, better rates, and some fixed term options as well. So we've been in beta for a few months, just went public about about 2 weeks ago and are just under 50 mil in TVL, and seeing a lot of very cool new use cases and growth. Yeah, excited to talk about some of that today.
Okay, that's great. I mean, it looks like we have here definitely a very good new cohort of founders and innovators in the space. So let's get started. I mean, the first thing that I want to ask you guys is, you decided to start your crypto company in the Solana ecosystem. So you probably understand what is the state of affairs in the ecosystem at the moment. I think it would be great if you could try to educate us a little bit into where is the ecosystem now, what's exciting, and what should people be looking at. I don't know who wants to take it over. Anna looks like she wants to do it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I think so. I used to work at Solana Foundation since May of 2022, and then saw a huge difference. This year, we're really seeing a ton of competition and innovation on both sides. So like new entrants are coming left and right, both from pretty much every EVM protocol I've talked to before now has a Solana person or is developing a Solana version. So a lot of the major protocols will be coming. And then on the Solana front, a lot of trading TradFi people outside of the ecosystem are now choosing to build on Solana. So on one hand, it really pushes like founders here like us trying to create something new. We need to ship both fast and different. Otherwise, somebody else will come and there are like 3 other projects doing very similar things. But the ecosystem, I think almost all of us here have been around since, or I think all of us have been building before FTX. So there's a lot of camaraderie of older builders that like just help each other, and we've pivoted or learned a lot of things along the way. That's something I really appreciate in the Solana ecosystem, and we host a lot of also offline events, both for Insto, like the audience here, and for builders. So that we can connect and talk to our potential customers. Yeah, very happy to be building on Solana.
Yeah, just to jump on.
Where's the majority of the volume concentrated at the moment in the Solana ecosystem? How will you see where's the action happening?
Yeah, from my perspective, since we do run the DEX aggregator side of things, it seems like more and more market makers are coming on like directly on chain. And that's where the majority of the volume, like around 30-35% of Solana's on-chain volume is being processed through at this stage. So these look like professional market makers rather than your standard like Uni V2, Uni V3 type of pools that do exist. So it seems like with more competition becomes more specialization. Either your trading strategies get more complex or your focus gets very narrow, like, with Stable or Perena focusing on stable coins, or SoFi, ZeroFi, just really focusing on market making USDC Sol to like the best prices possible out there. That seems to be like where all the action is taking place these days.
That is super interesting, actually. What about like outside of trading? What other pockets of high interaction do you see in the ecosystem, and where do you see a lot of transaction volume happening?
I mean, I'm happy to touch on the lending side of things. We've worked with both Perena and Exponent assets quite a bit over the last month or two. And there's a ton of interest in both like stablecoin farming, generally just yields. So people swapping between stablecoins and wanting to lever up on those yields, as well as, which I'm sure Thomas can talk more about, but the Jito restaking sort of sphere has really gotten a lot of people excited recently. And so there's some pretty high yields that are floating around the ecosystem right now that compound on the excitement there, especially with sort of the type of product that Thomas has built that lets people sort of take the long-term speculative view of a platform and pull forward some of that yield into something that is real yield that lenders or people who just kind of want to take the safer route and just earn cash today versus not necessarily speculate on the future of these protocols. And so I think there's a lot of activity right now on chain with kind of the point of this conversation in general, which is like new things that are happening in DeFi get people excited. People want to speculate on the future of those things, and I think that drives a lot of kind of movement around the ecosystem of people kind of picking their bets that they want to make, and it moves a lot of money in a very quick amount of time, which is kind of unique to crypto, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, the money market has a big diversification in the Solana space as well, correct? There are many different players, and that's made it very dynamic. It looks like you were selling Thomas's product, so good for him. He has a big fan base. Maybe
Yeah,
Thomas,
I was gonna add, we're seeing new players also deploying capital into across Solana, like new funds, new institutions. I remember when I was at Squads, it was very new for those types of players to interact with Solana at all. I think mainly because the infrastructure wasn't there, the primitives were still super early and not established. And now that we have strong foundations, all the I'd say all the largest funds, liquid funds, DeFi funds, active on EVM have started looking into Solana and using protocols like us, like Perena, I'm pretty sure, and others. And so that's very interesting because now we're seeing new liquidity entering the space, and they're looking for high yields on Sol, on stables, and we have many new teams working on that on stablecoin projects like Perena. And on the Sol side, we have all those restaking protocols on top of Jito, building cool stuff as well, like Fragmetric. So all of that together is a very good combo for these guys to basically deploy capital and start driving more liquidity volume across the whole ecosystem.
That's great. So a lot of exciting stuff happening in the Solana ecosystem, a lot of growth in terms of adoption from founders building on the ecosystem, but also you alluded to capital coming into the ecosystem, both from the EVM ecosystem, but also from traditional finance. I guess a lot of exciting things going on there. So I wanted to ask you guys, so I mean, you are all building DeFi use cases that are unique, correct? And you're trying to build differentiation into your products. How does Solana ecosystem enable you and the primitives to develop? I mean, is it mainly just the fact that Solana has reached critical mass and therefore has a lot of users, or are there also characteristics into the technology that are unique to enable you develop the primitives that you're working on? Open to the audience. Anyone can take it if you want to start.
I can kick off. So something that we see in the stablecoin DeFi space is that Solana just has a ton more users. Yes, Solana users are, a lot of them are retail that simply don't really go to EVM mainnet because it's cheaper, it's easier to use. A lot of the protocols, I think we've taken inspiration. Certainly, I don't shy away from saying that I took a lot of inspiration from like the OG DeFi protocols on EVM. So when we look at like our design and or other Solana protocols designs, I think a lot of them are much more user-friendly for non-DeFi experts, and that drives a lot more users. Like it's easier onboarding for them to come.
Yeah, I think the speed matters a lot because if you have lower latencies, you can do a lot more with what financial products you can be really pushing out. Like, you know, the inspirations from EVM side of things, 2019, 2020 with DeFi Summer, like their algorithms are very advanced on that side, but they haven't been modified to bring it down to Solana level speeds. And that's really like one thing that we want to really bring over. It's just like, how efficient can we make this at the lowest latency possible in a decentralized manner? And I think, you know, that just opens up a lot of gateways to everybody.
Yeah, and I guess just adding kind of on that, a lot of the sort of limitations that I think building on ETH mainnet, especially kind of when things were really expensive in 21, like a lot of the bottlenecks that came up in development for lending specifically around, you know, if you're going to lend out $100, but it's going to cost you $5 to modify some settings or whatever it may be on a protocol sort of eats all the interest that you were going to earn on it in the first place. So for things that are ultimately fairly precise, especially in lower dollar amounts or that you're modifying very frequently, it's really tough to be creative with like what you're going to end up doing on the lending side. So a lot of what we have is, very precise modifications of parameters on lending orders, whether that's changing your LTVs or it's modifying, the sort of full spectrum of collateral you want to support or whatever it may be, interest rates, etc. Building out, sort of a real order book style lending platform on ETH would really be tough to do in any sort of actively managed way. And so that's why a lot of even the like equivalent order book type lending platforms that you see on ETH really ended up sort of being just like limit orders on top of pools anyway, because the pools are very easy to do without having to modify settings. So I think there's a lot of those like very actively managed pieces that are uniquely possible on a chain like Solana that make a bigger design space for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas, you want to add anything else?
Maybe quickly, so on that, Solana makes it very easy for builders basically to focus on UX UI. We don't have to worry about gas or anything like that. We can just build like simple one-click UX. And so when you use Solana applications that have maybe some similar protocols on EVM, usually you, and a lot of time, you find the UX and the whole experience very easy to use. And I think it's part of the reason why, because of transactions fees and throughput, it's super easy for builders to not worry about that and just focus on actual proper user experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, when you look at the impact of user experience, I think it has to come with also a specific value proposition that you can acquire into these financial services compared to traditional finance, correct? And I think we're all here working under the idea that the future of decentralized finance is going to not only replicate what we can find in traditional finance, but add a lot of value, by composability and by enabling capital efficiencies. I think it will be very interesting. And I know that some of you guys are already working together on like cross-protocol collaborations and enabling capital to scale through, like you said, ease of user interface, but also like differentiated products and value propositions. It would be great if you could just, tell us a little bit about some of the combos that can be created and why they really bring, when you put all of these protocols together, they bring an additional value proposition for the user.
You got it, Anna.
Okay, cool. Perena is probably at the center of this as an example. So we built USD Star, which is an LP token for USDC, USDT, and PyUSD. We'll have more of these coming with various types of assets. So with USD Star, we work with Exponent, and Exponent splits it into PT and YT. And then from there, the PT YT goes into Loopscale, and Loopscale does borrow lend on top of that. So there's one asset that's like a base asset, and we created multiple products together on top of that. At the same time, the underlying asset that backs USD Star goes into Titan for swapping. So this like $1 that makes up USD Star is in multiple places and can be used for multiple purposes, which is really hard to do in TradFi. Like TradFi has been able to do this to date for very, very specific. They built very specific plumbing and products in order for this to happen for, let's say, equities. But if you want to do like a cross-asset trade or cross-asset collateralization, it's almost impossible unless you're like you bank with every single, like you have prime broker with a lot of the huge banks. So for new products on Solana, I think a lot of them exhibit this type of characteristic.
It's a great example. I mean, I was just, for a moment, I was afraid that you were not going to include Chris in the combo. You found a good way to put him in. That was great, by the way. That was good. I don't know if, I mean, it seems that you guys already have that very clear linkage there. I don't know if you have another example of composability that you see that is exciting in the ecosystem for people to know about.
Well, I mean, I think like in that same vein, at least on our end, like the advantage for like users depositing into our platform is they don't think about what's going on in the ecosystem. And so a lot of like the yield that drives back to the people depositing in our platform is other people who do know what's going on in the ecosystem and understand how to, you know, make money doing something, whether it's market making on a DEX or, you know, restaking or whatever it may be. They don't have to necessarily know all of the things that are going on in order to have some, you know, upside from it. And so like the cool thing is, you know, what Exponent guys are doing, they say, hey, Jito is making a lot of money, you know, on its tip router, and Fragmetric is taking a little cut of that. That's coming back in the form of extra yield for Fragsol. Nobody really wants to understand what the chain of, you know, flows are for where those funds are coming from, but they are excited that there's 18% yield on your SOL. And so like what we, you know, what is beneficial about this is you can kind of abstract the different responsibilities and like user preferences and flows and all these things, so that like the people who would never even think about what Jito is possibly doing can still see some extra yield driven, you know, ecosystem wide by that revenue coming in from Jito and the kind of distribution of that stuff. And it kind of works even with USD Star, and obviously, you know, kind of across the board with DEXs, and Chris obviously kind of powers all of that stuff. So I think there's just tons of examples why with Solana, especially, it's so nice to be able to just immediately plug into all of these things and have all the assets available to just play around with.
Yeah, that's honestly a very interesting way of looking at it, Kurt, because you're saying there is that if you don't want to bother with all of the capital scalability technology that goes behind it, you still have value proposition, which is that the fact that this all exists makes you have a higher yield than elsewhere, and ultimately then generating a flywheel effect for users. I think it's honestly very interesting to look at it that way. Quite like it. So I mean, the other thing that you guys alluded to that I found very interesting from also some of the conversations that I had with some of the early Solana founders is the fact that even throughout the tough times, you know, the community really was very strongly believing in what they were building. And now that has come into the creation also of the Momentum cohort, which I know you guys are part of. I think it would be great if you could tell a little bit the audience about how does the founder community, the Solana ecosystem support each other, and how does these kind of initiatives are allowing new founders to potentially join the ecosystem. I don't know who want to take it over. Maybe Thomas, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I can take it. Yeah, I feel like in Solana, builders try to help each other. Like for instance, when someone working at a specific project leaves and launch a new project, usually you see a lot of builders investing into that and trying to support from either capital connections or anything like that. And so I think we've seen over the past years Solana going through many types of events like FTX, UST outages, and so on. And so it's built this very strong community. And like when you go to events like Breakpoint, anything related to Solana, you always kind of meet the same people. And I think we're all like well bound together because we're on this mission of making Solana really like a important part of the like next generation of finance. And we really strongly believe that Solana can be the place for that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here building on Solana, because there has been many times in the past where we could have decided to leave and do something else and get higher salaries or more capital on other chains. But I think all the people that you've seen sticking around over the past years really are not just here because there's like some money to be made, but because they think they can actually build something meaningful for the next generation of finance. And so when you see Drift doing some kind of accelerator, I think it's also because they want to give back, kind of. They've been doing well over the past years, and now they want to see more successful projects. And it also makes sense for them, because if you see new protocols launching on Solana and being successful. That means you have new assets being issued on Solana, so new assets on Drift for them that they can use as collateral, for instance. That means also new builders building on top of Drift and other platforms. So it's I think very healthy, and it helps creating this strong ecosystem of builders, products, assets that you want to have on this open ledger. So yeah, no, it's just long story short, I think it's a very good thing for the ecosystem, and I think it's really part of the Solana's culture, almost trying to help each other and trying to grow the pie together rather than just alone without talking to others.
Do you see a lot of new founders actually coming into the ecosystem, or like you said, it's mainly like an old group of friends that have been just developing this thing for years now?
Yeah, it's very like open. Like as long as you're trying to build something meaningful for the ecosystem, and you're trying to build something legit, and you're ready to invest time and effort into that, I think like projects on protocols on Solana are very happy to help you, work with you, and help you. And so yeah, I think it's like something you see from like anyone working in Solana.
Okay, that's great. I don't know if maybe Chris, you wanted to add something as well on this topic?
Yeah, I think everything Thomas said was fully accurate. Like, if you need help, there's lots of communities out there that can get you access to founders, projects, and everybody's been very, very willing to talk. I think the big one is like Super Team. They have chapters across the world, like Super Team Canada, Germany, UK, and like all you have to do is just show up to one of the like weekly events that they host, and you just start talking to people, start figuring out what people are doing, and then like most of them have like connections to people that you want to talk to, or really other founders that you want to like just ping ideas off of, and it's just been a great ecosystem to be part of.
Great. Maybe I'll ask you something, maybe to shift a little bit around on what could be a little bit of a problem. But like the ecosystem is so great that I think competition has become a little bit also of an aggressive space. Correct? There in every primitive there are a lot of different protocols competing, and also we start to see a lot of I would say mercenary behavior where the users are just trying to go for the incentive mechanisms that are from one protocol to the other and cycling money around. So for you as founders, I mean, how do you decide how to approach the competitive nature of this ecosystem and like compete against the very aggressive incentive mechanisms that are set by the already more established protocols in the chain?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll just start off. I guess on our side, I guess the main key thing here is that you want to define what your KPIs are going to be, right? So don't define a KPI that can really be farmed by any type of mercenary capital. Just try and figure out, what is the correct metric for your product, and trying to abide by that as much as you can on that side. And then I think the rest is like, when you're going up against a very established player, you just have to be confident that like the product that you're building provides a significant advantage over what currently exists in the marketplace, right? You're not if you're doing direct competition one-to-one with a product that already exists, you just got to offer something better, and you got to identify what these users really want. Is it price improvements? Is it like increased yield, increased risk tolerance on that side? And you just have to perform better at a better UI perspective, and eventually just gradually grab market share bit by bit.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but in your case, that will be Jupiter, correct? You want to take this as an opportunity to explain why you have a value proposition that differentiates in the marketplace? I'll give you the
So basically our value proposition right now is that we did launch the meta aggregator. I know Jupiter just launched theirs as well. So, we're going to be aggregating different quotes across different routers, and whoever gets the best price wins. But on our side, we do have our own proprietary algorithm that does seem to be like in live trading situations still outperforming 80% of the time versus anything that really exists out there right now. So, we really believe that price matters, and even saving 10 basis points on each trade is going to get you, it just compounds, right? You do 10 basis points across 100 trades, you're saving 10% on your total volume on that side. And we really believe that's really valuable for traders. anywhere, any type of power trader, because I certainly don't like paying 10 basis points in commission fees in any type of market out there. So,
okay, clear. So Anna also wanted to allude into the competitive landscape and the incentive mechanisms that are going on at the moment.
I think I wasn't expecting how much people would be looking at points versus actually using the product. Thomas would know this because we work a lot on the points part, and people are. I think users are getting smarter. Even retail users, they will make elaborate spreadsheets to calculate the ROI of using with XYZ protocol. So certainly, on one hand, I think having incentive mechanisms drives a lot of volume, which is great, and on the other hand, sometimes, like for Perena, not our entire value prop is not all built upon trading. A lot of it is built upon like saving as a cash, like money market fund type of asset. So it's pretty low yield, it's safe. We don't necessarily want everybody to be farming points super aggressively. So I hope that as we are bringing on, well, we talked a little bit about bringing on a lot of new trading firms and traditional like financial type of users onto Solana. But in the meantime, I think what's going to sustain a lot of these products is the real users that are looking for an alternative to their existing or non-existent financial access, so that they're using Solana as their main access point to the financial world. On the incentive front, I think most of us here have been pretty responsible with how we're doing points. Nobody's like aggressively trying to vampire attack other protocols or like just emitting a ton of points to get users to come over. So on that front, most projects on Solana have been pretty, like we try to take the more sustainable route, and hopefully that pays off in the longer run.
What do you consider to be the most successful incentive program that has launched in the Solana ecosystem so far?
Probably Camino.
That's
So
pretty good.
I'll say
Yeah, Camino was a good one.
Yeah, I think the main thing is how many, through points, you get two types of users. One is like smart users already, and you bring them over from other ecosystems. So net new capital that comes into Solana and they stay in Solana. And another one that I find really useful, even for Perena, but certainly for Camino, was you upskill existing retail users. Like 2 years ago, most retail users didn't know what borrowland was on Solana. They were like just maybe holding Sol. But 2 years later, the average retail user on Solana all know how to use Camino, which is like amazing because of largely, I think, because of the points program.
That's good. Absolutely. Anybody else wants to comment on this topic on competition and point structures in the ecosystem? Seems like we're covered.
I mean, I was the only one who didn't go. I'm happy to give a quick thought, but I think it's all these guys covered the main topics on this, and I think it's probably will forever be a little bit of a problem with how like easy it is to spin up like say 80% as good competitors to things that can kind of perpetually have the new flow of capital that's always chasing the next cool thing. And I think it's a good, important when you're designing these things to think about the long term of how you not only win some market share, but then keep it, with any sort of incentive program like this. And I think Camino is a great example of sort of a perpetual points program and incentive program that sort of, and Jupiter has done the same thing. And Chris, I'm sure you've thought about kind of the dynamics that play with the platforms that have already kind of set up a perpetual incentive mechanism in some respects. That's pretty important to both the competitive aspect right now for platforms like us, but also thinking about it from the other side as you grow.
Clear. So I'd like to maybe start getting towards our closing remarks and really asking you guys about what's exciting. Before going into what's exciting, I have a question for you. What financial primitives are you surprised that it didn't actually work, that couldn't find product market fit in all your time in the ecosystem, that you thought that's gonna work and it's gonna be $1 billion company, didn't work at all?
Yeah, I have one. I used to work there as well, so Yeah, I kind of understand why it didn't work, but also still surprised. And it's CDP stablecoin projects. We don't have one yet. And so, yeah, I used to work at Hubble back in the days, and they tried very hard to make that work, but liquidity was always an issue. And it was very tough to replicate what happened on EVM with MakerDAO. I think what made MakerDAO so successful is because at that time there was not much ways to leverage ETH on chain without KYC, and so borrowing DAI against ETH was one of the only ways to really go long on ETH in 2019, 2020. So yeah, that has been missing a lot, I would say, because right now when you look at Solana, there's no clear decentralized stablecoin. Perena is obviously working on that, and they have many exciting stuff coming soon. But it's still very fresh. So, but we're seeing more though projects working on that, more stablecoin projects like Hilo and others, trying to come up with something interesting enough for the ecosystem. And I think, I think this year we're going to see new iterations on that design, and probably one of them will be very successful, or at least start seeing some traction. So yeah, I've been missing a lot stablecoin primitives on Solana.
That's great. Any other cool story to share?
100% agree on Thomas's point. I think a lot of people try to build CDPs on Solana and then they decided to do something else. So hopefully either we can build it or somebody else will build it. And Hilo is one of the more exciting new stablecoin primitives. I think going off of like a similar vein, I still think it's going to happen, but Forex on Solana has been non-existent for the most part still. I thought it was going to be a really big market just because of TradFi volumes, but certainly it's not picked up yet.
Which protocol was trying to do this? Was there?
Not a protocol specifically, but I used to be the stablecoin lead at Solana Foundation and brought on a number of non-dollar stablecoins. So we tried different use cases. They have like real world use cases in their own countries or regions, but on chain, like on DeFi or between like FX spot trading, there just wasn't much volume.
Yeah, it's indeed the case. That's also something that we see. I mean, I think it's the case in the whole blockchain space overall. There's not much adoption for that yet. And even if you look at the amount of minted amounts of those assets that are non-USD stablecoins, is still very small. We were also very surprised about it. Actually, a few years ago, we took a couple of opportunities into that space with Euro stablecoins, and they haven't stayed actually relatively small still. So I agree with that. Actually, also I was very surprised about that one myself. Luke, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was going to add to that. I think it's very interesting with sort of the potential regulatory landscape changes in the U.S. For us as obviously a U.S.-based team, we're seeing a lot more interest from call it either TradFi tokenized asset issuers or like more blended DeFi. Like, there's a project on Solana right now called Etherfuse that's really interesting, doing some stuff with emerging market bonds and bringing those yields on chain. And especially with sort of the less concern, at least for regulatory action, I think there's a lot more potential for that stuff to start trickling into DeFi. That was kind of how we started. It was much more focused on like RWA backed lending. And so we sort of ran into a lot of bottlenecks with like what's possible to merge with like the existing pools of capital and users in DeFi and like the assets and yield and things going on outside of DeFi. And so starting to see some of that come together, whether that's like through whitelisted liquidations or trading pools or whatever it may be, or like ultimately fully permissionless, integrations of bonds and a bunch of different equities. Like I was actually just talking to the Ondo guys about their new Ondo global markets thing that hopefully will have Solana support off the jump. And that's going to be another 30 or 40 stocks that they've got market makers coming on chain for, and starting to think about people moving their full portfolios into DeFi eventually and how that ultimately will look. Just at least for me, I enjoy kind of having my wallet and controlling everything there rather than logging into a bunch of different brokerage accounts and things like that. And so if eventually that industry, all of those assets do end up having some representation within DeFi, I think we'll have, a lot more flexibility as platforms to integrate sort of the next phase of all of this stuff.
A lot of small nuggets there, actually. That's pretty good. I guess it contributes towards your narrative in which all of this tokenized real world yield comes in, and you make it kind of like abstracted for the user that just wants to get the yield, correct? Like it goes into the machine.
Well, I mean, it's also like there's a lot of added risk, right, with all of these things. So like you take a new stable coin, you can even think about the CDP example. Every new asset's going to have its own sort of risks associated with it. Within crypto so far, it's kind of constrained to things that are like, well audited. People feel pretty confident in the security of. So there's not a lot of like extra credit risk aside from like liquidation risk. And so for us, the important thing is like, can you give users sort of like an opt-in to the risk levels? But then once they opt into the risk level, the yield, they don't have to think about where it's coming from necessarily. And that's all sort of, they're able to sort of benefit from that indirectly, a number of ways. So as, people want to start borrowing against their Tesla shares to go long Apple on chain, why can't some of that yield end up trickling back to the end user in some indirect way?
I buy it. It's good. What about you, Chris?
Honestly, I think I'm gonna have to just go with the FX example because, to be honest, I thought it would take off way faster, like you guys thought, but that might have just been a trend of the US dollar being just so strong over the past couple of years, and that it seems like I hold all my assets in US dollars in traditional equity world because I just don't want to hold any Canadian dollars because the CAD has been like a terrible asset for a while at this point. But with the reversal, it seems like currency trends may be reversing. It may be coming up again. That this may be an environment where people start wanting to have euros, yen, or something else. With the US dollar, that's seeming to drop off in a bit of dominance here.
Absolutely. I think that might be the case. We'll see how the FX market evolves. To come to an end, I think this is the part where you guys can give a little bit of alpha about your products. I think it would be great if you could just tell us a little bit about where is your protocol going, and if you can disclose any up and coming updates or events associated to your initiative that people can know about. That would be great. Maybe we can start with Anna since she took the lead in the other since the beginning.
Sure. So we have USD Star. We're introducing a trading strategy backed token as well. And then we'll have vaults for users to invest their USD Star into. All of these will be composable, by the way. We will not launch anything that's not composable. So all of them expect to be supported by, as it grows and matures, of course. They're similar in nature as USD Star. So other protocols we can work with them to work on like yield trading and borrowland and stuff like that. And FX also, hopefully this year we'll see. Certainly March and April were exciting times for FX. So I'm still hoping.
So when I was asking who's gonna do this, you were taking on the challenge. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So our new AMM we'll launch a AMM v2 as well. That's in the works. The new AMM will be able to support FX. We're trying to make it so that it's lower IL. Hopefully this year FX will take off. I'm really hoping for all of us who are not or who don't always live in the US. FX is useful sometimes. Yeah.
Well, that's great news. We'll definitely look into that release. Thomas, you wanna give us a bit of an update on Exponent?
Yeah, we don't like to share too much usually, but yeah, we're working on a new version of Exponent, so V2 version kind of, with new liquidity mechanisms that I don't think have been tried out elsewhere. And yeah, ultimately with Exponent, we're trying to really make fixed income markets like first-class citizen and a proper segment within Solana. So we're trying to work on something that could enable long-tail markets and new types of interest rate swaps that you cannot do right now with the current mechanisms enabled by Exponent. So yeah, so I don't think it's going to go live very soon. like this month, but we're trying to target that for Q3, Q4 this year. And I think that's going to be very exciting for the whole ecosystem, because that's going to create new types of assets for platforms like Loopscale, for instance, and new financial activities overall for the whole space.
I'm excited about that one. I actually like a lot the interest rate swaps topic, and I agree with you. I think it's a necessary pillar for the continuous growth of the ecosystem for sure. Chris, want to tell us a little bit about what's new? What are you gonna be working on?
So I guess in a couple hours we should have RFQ systems ready and live on Titan's platform. I guess, and the rest of the week we'll just be integrating more and more RFQ providers. Our objective really is just to start making RFQ be composable with our routes. So, first leg of the route with an RFQ with a market maker, second leg with an on-chain AMM. We think this will just bring a lot more liquidity flowing through the system, especially bring in off-chain in a composable manner. I think that's really the objective here. But first step is let's bring the RFQ on our platform first, and we just move on from there.
That's great. And Luke, you can have the closing remarks. Go for it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'll keep it short. So we're going to be rolling out a series of what we're calling sponsored vaults. So things that are really focused on new collateral types. So we've got some RWA focused integrations just for higher yield, a little bit different risk profile. Some new Solana dexes that we're going to be integrating for, again, a different yield profile. And just try to give users a little bit more variability and like kind of where the rates are coming from. If they want to take a little bit additional risk, we can offer higher LTVs, a little bit more aggressive rates on things that are a little bit further down the risk curve as collateral. And then as a part of that, onboarding our first set of curators. So these will be third-party managers of risk on the platform. So right now, all of the risk on these vaults that we have on the app are things that we're setting. So we're tuning things, effectively manually or just via sort of like a framework that we've laid out. But going forward, we'll have some folks who've done this mostly on Ethereum that have been a little bit more experienced with seeing kind of where things could go wrong and how to maximize yield for lenders. So that'll be kind of our next big push here, really over the next 2-3 weeks. All that should be coming out. So I'm excited to keep hammering on it.
Thank you very much for sharing, guys. Really amazing. I think a lot of exciting things that have been coming into the ecosystem. I think with this last part, very clear that the development will continue. We're very excited about interacting with all the protocols and keeping up to date with all the latest developments. Thank you very much for the time, and I wish you the best in the journey ahead. Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Bye.